Hello, and welcome back to Random Vids. Today, as the title says, this is another part of the 101 Dalmatians series rankings. So, sadly though, this is the very last one. I've done Season 1, I've done 4 parts of Season 2, so this is the last part of Season 2, then the show's over. Now I know, there's some episodes that I have forgotten, because there's a few that I remember seeing before, but just haven't showed up. So, anyway, this is the last part of Season 2. I know a lot of people really liked the Dalmatian series. It had a lot of views, had like over 80 views. The third or fourth one did, or something like that. It's a lot of views, and this is the rankings that I know you guys don't mind and actually like. So, without further ado, let's get started with this very last 101 Dalmatians the series ranking. So, number 15, and my personal least favorite episode of this part, is Conehead. We are starting off bad. Not as bad as Splishing and Splashing, but still pretty bad. Kind of like Love 'Em and Flee 'Em, where Lucky gets tortured because of Mooch. Hey, I thought they learned to quit making Mooch appear in episodes. Mooch is the cause of Lucky getting a cone. Twice, in fact. At least Mooch deserves what he gets at the end. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. He gets what he deserves at the end. And I guess it was nice to see Dipstick and Whizzer again. And I guess that the Roger scenes were kind of funny too, where he tries to comb his hair, and instead he just rips his hair out, so then he just has a bald spot, which was really funny to see. As I said though, like Love 'Em and Flee 'Em, there's just way too much torturing, and Mooch is behind both of those. This episode, well, other than the positives that I talked about it's pretty bad. Number 14 would go to Horace and Jasper's big career move. Yet again, another flashback episode, because the last one went so good, right? And yet again, it's just as boring as the last one. So, like the last flashback episode, I'll just quickly tell you the episodes in this flashback. So the episodes that were in, the episodes that were in this, I guess, flashback special is Cruella World, Market Mayhem, Do the Right Thing, Film Fatal, No Train, No Gain, Fountain of Youth, Out to Launch, and Christmas Cruella. Episode, pretty boring. Number 13 would go to Channels. Another pretty boring episode. There's just not much I need to say about this episode. I feel like this was the out of ideas episode. All that happens is the farm animals watch TV. Yeah, let's move on. Number 12 would go to the Ville Age Elder. Yet again, another pretty boring special. This one honestly kind of reminds me of Cruella World, but worse and more boring. It's just too long in my opinion. However, there was, I guess, a few funny and interesting moments. Well, like the Cruella scenes, of course. And, well, nothing much I really have to say about this episode. It's just a meh type of episode. So, yeah, let's move on, because there's not much else I have to say. Number 11 would go to Jurassic Bark. Yet again, that villain from Food for Thought, and the more he keeps coming back, the more interesting he is. So Lucky finds this prehistoric dog, and he wants to take it home with him. Why does he take it home, you may ask? Because if not, then Cruella and that other villain will dissect him. But it doesn't work. And at the end, the prehistoric pup, dog, whatever you want to call it, just goes away to, I forget what they said, but he doesn't live at the barn. So, a pretty, episode, I guess. So, let's move on. We are in the top 10 now, with number 10 going to Spot's Fairy God Chicken. For some reason, this episode kind of reminds me of High Price of Fame. Maybe it's because in both episodes, Spot, changes. This time, she turns into a dog, and honestly, it's better than the High Price of Fame. So, not much I have to add about the episode, so let's move on. Number 9 would go to Coupe Ville. So in this episode, the DeVilles are having a family meeting. The villain that I call the one villain, and even a painter, or an artist as well. And heck, even the return of Ivy from that episode, Poison Ivy. And of course, Cruella DeVille's mom. If you ask me, she looks a little bit like Yzma from that movie, The Emperor's New Groove. So in this episode, all 5 DeVilles work together to try to take the Dearly's farm. Well, at least the land of the farm. And of course, it doesn't work out. But overall, episode is a pretty good one. Definitely top 10 for me. Number 8 would go to Dog Food Day Afternoon. For starters, Dipstick has a different voice. I don't know if it's because he's eating or what, because it's awful. Besides that, though, the episode is really good. So, Cruella is changing the kibble recipe, and, well, really is not fond of that. Parts of this episode reminds me of Close But No Cigar, and altogether, it's definitely a really good episode. Not much I need to add, so let's move on. Number 7 would go to Unlucky. Something that is really cool that I didn't know till watching the show is that Lucky's spots on his back are in the shape of a horseshoe. Then there's one scene where Rolly accidentally rubs off a little bit of Lucky's, I guess, horseshoe. And because of that, Lucky thinks he's unlucky now. Then there's actually one scene with Lucky racing Tripod, and while they're racing, Lucky's horseshoe completely comes off. And of course, when that happens, he ends up losing. This one is actually pretty interesting. It does remind me of Conehead, but just, like I said, more interesting. Also, Cruella's in it. So yeah. Number 6 would go to Every Little Crooked Nanny. So, yet again, Cruella has another idea, and this time she is dressing like a nanny. And say it with me, we get to see some funny Cruella scenes. And also, a little off topic, but has anybody ever heard of or watched the show Super Nanny? I don't know, just looking at this episode sort of reminds me of Super Nanny. And altogether, just a really, really good episode. So, you know what? Let's move on. Number 5 is The Making of. Man, oh man, this one is a good classic, and a lot of people like this one, and I can definitely see why. The episode is perfect, and I like seeing the different ways that the pups want to make the show. And heck, this episode even had a few flashbacks. I'm not going to name them because I've already talked a lot about this episode. There was a lot of good scenes, like a dog version of the classic The Simpsons. And of course, you can't forget about that Brady Bunch, that classic show, Brady Bunch reference. That part was very funny. Let's just watch it for a moment. And of course, even a coyote and wolf scene as well. with, of course, Spot being the Roadrunner and Cruella being the Coyote. So once again, let's just watch that moment. And heck, even a talk show scene. Altogether, this episode is very funny and definitely one of my favorite episodes. So, let's move on. Number 4 would go to My Fair Moochie. Oh no, Mooch is in it again. Unlike the last episode, The Making of, I noticed people don't really like this one as much as that one, or heck, don't even like this one at all. And honestly, I don't understand why. Mooch is finally being nice for a change. This is the second time right after 12 Angry Pups that Mooch has ever been nice. It's only 2 episodes, which is sad. And Mooch being nice is the main reason why I like him better in those episodes rather than episodes like Love Him and Flee Him or Conehead. And I just really like how Mooch is just pretty much the opposite of what he normally does. I'm not lying. If Mooch acted like this in every episode, he would automatically be by far one of my favorite pups. The only part I didn't like in this episode is the part at the end where Cadpig ditches Mooch at the end of the episode. Instead, she hangs it with that Chihuahua wrestling thing. But other than that, this episode is definitely very good. And, of course, the 3 best episodes of this part is definitely the Dalmatian Vacation. If you want me to tell you in order of the 3 parts, I would say number 3 would be part 2, number 2 would be part 3, and number 1 would be part 1. Now, part 1 and part 3 are very close together, but I just find part 1 a little bit more humorous than part 3. But all 3 are very good and are definitely my favorite episodes of this part. The series starts off strong, and it ends off strong. A vacation is how I could see the series ending anyway. So the Dearlies are going on vacation, if you haven't guessed it already. And of course, Cruella and Jasper and Horse come along as well. And of course, Cruella has a plan on ruining their vacation. Like the episode You Say It's Your Birthday, it's long and it's fun. I'm going to quickly talk about the funny scenes for all 3 parts. I will first like how Whizzer constantly goes pee every 2 feet, and of course later peeing on Cruella's shoes. The chicken restaurant scene, or when Cruella wants a picture with the Dearlies, or whenever Whizzer hides in Cruella's hat, or when Jasper and Horse are driving down a waterfall, or Cruella's picture, or when Cruella opens the truck door and water comes out, twice in fact. The runaway truck scene, the bullet train scene, the inflatable suit part,